The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today, the final 50 minutes of the trade deadline show. We've had a fun day, as always. We've had some big moves. We've had some little ones. Doing our best to keep all of that straight. This is, again, the final 50 minutes of the live show and available to those of you as well on the traditional podcast channels. I haven't paused in a little bit here to just give a kind of a brief rundown of what we got going on, just because there were a bunch of trades coming in and wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything. But this is the Hoop Ball 2019 Trade Deadline live show. We started at 9 this morning Pacific time, running until 1 p.m., so a 4-hour show without commercial interruption. But that doesn't mean that I can't tell you this show is brought to you by Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. HawaiianIsles.com is the website. They're running a coupon right now for those of you enjoying this live show. It's Hoop Ball. Punch in that coupon at HawaiianIsles.com. You get 15% off of your order. I think that actually should probably be functional now. Glenn's been hard at work over there getting everything set up. At HI Kona Coffee on Twitter. You can also find them on Amazon by just searching for Hawaiian Isles. Mike, I know you're a massive fan of them as well. We've got Mike Apotria, Brandon Marcus, and Aaron Bruschi for this segment of the show. The In This League guys coming up in 20 minutes. They'll help us close this thing out from 12:30 to 1 in the afternoon. It sounds like there may be a trickling going on here. Yes. We got the trickle. The Moose, Greg Monroe, is headed to the Brooklyn Nets. That's our post-trade deadline move of the day.
Beetlejuice, as soon as they said his name before.
Yeah, you got him to Brooklyn. Okay, well, we'll break it down. I mean, hell, we broke everything else down, so we'll break this one down. The Moose, does he play in Brooklyn at all? Mike, I'll go to you first on this one.
I doubt it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him waived. But who knows? They could always use another guy behind Jared Allen. Jared Allen, they seemingly won't play him over 30 minutes unless he has one foul going into the fourth quarter. So maybe they just want another big body because it kind of complements his little smaller frame, I guess. But like I said before, it doesn't take long for teams to figure out when Greg Monroe or Enes Kanter are on the floor and how to take advantage of it fast. So.
Ed Davis is already there, by the way. So
yeah.
I mean, like we talk about him all the time, rebounds, and Ed Davis is the backup there. I think Mike's right. I think this is about the draft pick more than anything, since it's Monroe and a second rounder to Brooklyn.
This is, of course, Mike Apotria, Brandon Marcus, Aaron Bruschi. You can follow all of us on Twitter. At Dan Bespers is my own. At Aaron Bruschi, you know those ones. At BD Marcus on Twitter. And at Mike Apotria. Yeah, I mean, you got Ed Davis there. You got the pick. That's obviously the big piece of this puzzle. And for Toronto, they just, I mean, I guess they didn't feel like they needed an additional big man. Moose didn't play much this year anyway, but it was basically a 1-for-1 big man swap earlier in the day, and I want to get to that now. Barring anything else trickling in, a quick recap, so all of you guys get a break now. You can all take a deep breath. Here are all of the trades that I've written down, and it's quite conceivable that I've missed one. So at the end of this list, you guys feel free to tell me what I biffed. Going all the way back to the beginning, the lead up to the trade deadline, we'll start with the Porzingis deal and work our way to later today. This is not entirely in chronological order, but sort of. Okay, I'm going to do like the Ace Ventura deep breath before I go into this thing. Porzingis, Tim Hardaway Jr., Trey Burke, and Courtney Lee for Dennis Smith Jr., DeAndre Jordan, and Wesley Matthews. Clippers and Philly, Tobias Harris, Boban, Mike Scott for Landry Shamet, Wilson Chandler, and Mike Muscala. Washington sent Otto Porter to the Bulls for Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker. They also sent Markieff Morris to New Orleans for Wesley Johnson. Sacramento and Dallas exchanged guys. Harrison Barnes on his way to Sacramento for Zebo and Justin Jackson. Sacramento also involved in a small trade today that sent Skal Labissiere to Portland for Caleb Swanigan, and a 3-team deal earlier that sent Iman Shumpert to Houston. Marquise Chris and Brandon Knight ended up with the Cavaliers, and Alec Burks ended up with the Sacramento Kings. Phoenix and Miami involved in largely a salary dump on the Miami side. They got rid of Tyler Johnson and Wayne Ellington and picked up Ryan Anderson. It remains to be seen what Phoenix does with the other names. With Wayne Ellington, sounds like he's a buyout candidate, especially now that he hasn't been traded by the deadline. Philadelphia sent got Malachi Richardson and then promptly waived him. That was in a low-profile deal with Toronto. Reggie Bullock is a Laker. They sent Svi Mikhailiuk to Detroit along with a pick. Thon Maker and Stanley Johnson were set to be exchanged, but now thanks to a secondary deal that sent Stanley Johnson and Jason Smith to the New Orleans Pelicans, that actually became a 3-team deal where Maker ends up in Detroit, Johnson and Smith end up in New Orleans, and Niko Mirotic ends up with the Milwaukee Bucks. James Ennis was sent to the Philadelphia 76ers in what ended up being a second-round swap with Houston. Let's see, what do we got? Nick Stauskas got traded again. He ended up in Indiana at the end of all of this stuff, as did Wade Baldwin. They started this whole thing in Portland, and it sort of doesn't matter what happened in between those two. JaMychal Green and Garrett Temple to the Clippers for Avery Bradley. Marc Gasol to the Grizzlies for Jonas Valanciunas, Delon Wright, and C.J. Miles. The Lakers and Clippers sent guys to different teams, but none of them had to go anywhere. They'll get new jerseys soon. That's Ivica Zubac and Michael Beasley for Mike Muscala. Shelvin Mack was sent to the Atlanta Hawks and was promptly waived for Tyler Dorsey. Wesley Matthews appears to have been bought out, and Boston sent Jabari Bird and money to the Atlanta Hawks for effectively nothing, a protected second-round pick, which means that's going to be way at the end of drafts, if at all. Okay. Did I miss anything?
I think you nailed it.
I'm tired.
Can you do it again? I didn't get it the first time. Just go one more time.
Thanks, Mike. I'm going to off you guys. I need a break from talking. So this is the part where we sort of go through and talk about our favorite moments of trade deadline day, in particular for the fantasy market. By the way, Brew tweeting that Detroit is actually going to be trying to sign Wayne Ellington after he's bought out. That's an interesting twist after trading away Reggie Bullock. I guess they figure they can get a shooter back to kind of fill his spot on the roster. But without getting into Wayne Ellington, Brandon, I'll go to you first on this one. The fantasy players maybe from today that emerged as the biggest winners and losers. This is what we were going to get into before a couple of the trades trickled in at the end. And you can even talk about guys that are already owned, because for me, a guy like Marc Gasol is a huge winner because he's no longer a shutdown candidate. But we've obviously talked about guys like Delon Wright as well. Who jumps out to you as your favorite stories of the day?
Well, I've written down a couple of those for biggest winners, because I know people are in the chat. They're trying to figure out who to pick.
Right.
And I think there are several guys right now that are all close together. I'm curious to get everybody's take on this in terms of where they rank everybody. You look at Thomas Bryant, obviously. The question is, are you concerned about Bobby Portis and how many minutes Portis will play, and will that eat into Bryant? I mean, Bryant was great yesterday playing 30+, but is Scotty Brooks going to go and play him 18 the next game? We just don't know. But I think that's a guy we have to go ahead and look at as Bryant. I like Wright, but now that Conley's staying there, that really tempers my expectations on him. I know Brew was talking very heavily about him earlier. I'm not sure if, Bruce, you still think that's the case with Wright being a nice add with Conley there. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like I was talking about before, I think he gets now the reins to that Clippers team. And he can shoot more than people think. He's good at his corner three. He gets his points, his rebounds, his assists. He gets steals and blocks because he's so long. So I do like SGA a lot. And Zubac, like you were talking about, I mean, he has minutes at center now. It's just him and Harold that I think will split that time. So those are the biggest guys that stand out to me. It does worry me as a Harris and Butler owner what's going to go on in Philly. But I do think that Brett Brown finds a way to play all those guys and separate them so that Harris can still get some minutes and still get some numbers. I think the bench will mean a lot less for Philly because those guys are there and they can contribute if they're spread out.
Mike?
I'm on board with a lot of the same things he said. I have Conley being one of my biggest winners of the day. It's somebody that's already owned in every single fantasy league, obviously, but knowing that he's still going to be playing for the Grizzlies for the rest of the year, as long as he's playing every game like he should be, which, I mean, the team's pretty much going to lose games even with or without Conley. The guy's unreal, but we've seen, I guess, what a pissed off Conley looks like playing over the past few weeks, and he's been playing unreal. And given that Marc Gasol's usage is going to be gone, Ivan Robb's going to be playing in that lineup. Ivan Robb's not a usage guy. Jaren Jackson's still a young guy, so he's probably going to flirt with, like, I would say high 20s usage from this point on. And then like Brandon said, Zubac looks like he's going to have that starting role. I would say he's locked into at least 24 minutes. And like Bruce said, if it gets to that 30-minute mark, he's a guy that you're going to wish you added if you didn't. So sometimes taking a flyer, if you have a guy on the end of your bench It's not like you're taking a flyer on something that will never pan out. 24-minute Zubac can be good, but you're also taking a flyer on him getting 30. And if that were to happen, he's a guy that's going to be a must-own player.
And then, Brew, I'll come back over to you on this one. We were trying to buy Aaron some time to catch up on all the Wire stuff as he adds notes to the article over at hoop-ball.com. I would suggest everybody listening go check that out to get all this stuff in writing in a place where you can remember it very quickly. Brew, your biggest winners and or losers from trade deadline day or trade deadline week. You can do roll the whole thing in together.
Yeah, let me take my Ace Ventura breath over here.
Yep.
And I did get caught up, so I'm very happy.
Outstanding.
Winners. I hesitate to call Conley a winner or a loser because I think it could go either way for him. He has not played a lot in the last 2 years. So we saw with Marc Gasol last year, he played through what was a lost season. And so they could absolutely just trot him out there and he could put up top 30 numbers and do that for the rest of the year. And at the same time, he could get a mild injury and they could decide, hey, it's not worth aggravating this. And, we want to tank and all that good stuff. So he could go either way. I think Delon Wright is a winner. I think that Zubac is absolutely a winner. I think some of the stuff that happened in the last couple of days might have been more consequential. Otto Porter going to a new team, Lauri Markkanen, like that guy was already locked into big time value, but now he loses a lot of minutes around him, with Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker.
Oh, when you say loses minutes, meaning other guys went away. So
exactly.
He actually
losing minutes, from other players there. Not as big of a, there wasn't that big splashy pickup this year. I think Wright might have been that guy. And correct me if I'm wrong. Am I missing a big splashy pickup here?
Not real. I mean, Wright, JV seems to be a big winner, but he should be owned, especially with his return so imminent as well. I mean, you got a couple guys in Dallas that look like pretty decent pickups, but yeah, it doesn't seem like there's that one guy that just dropped himself into a top 50 spot. Mike, Brandon, do you guys agree, disagree?
No, I agree.
I can't see anybody. I think it's more impacting guys who we already owned, guys who are going to see a little bit of usage ticks. Maybe like, Delon Wright, he's probably one of the guys that wasn't owned in any leagues that is now worth it. And Zubac was kind of getting picked up recently. So I guess if you're still out there, grab him. Woj just tweeted that the Bulls are working on a buyout right now with Robin Lopez. So that would actually get rid of another center on their team. And that might stir some things up a little bit.
Lakers are probably in the market for a center these days. Just saying, maybe go another Lopez route. I'm okay with that. I wonder where that dude ends up.
Well, the buyout market's going to be pretty hot this year.
Yeah.
And so that's going to almost be a little mini trade deadline of its own. But to Mike's point, yeah, a lot of guys that were already owned are getting big chances here. Tim Hardaway Jr. is one of those guys. The ads, Powell, Kleber, they were definitely on the radar a couple days ago. Beyond that, sort of going through my article here, looking at the list, seeing if there's, anything, major. I think Patrick Beverley is an under the radar winner, because he can carry on potentially with mid-round value. That team, we've seen Beverley in the past go on tears like that. So he could absolutely be a winner. I'll be updating my article with a little bit more
I hope so, man. I picked up all the old man Bev when he started to get hot.
Some Lakers, I guess, are winners because they didn't get dismantled over there. It's Jaren Jackson Jr. might be the biggest winner, actually.
It's a great point.
He's going to be on a top 30 pace. And that's what everybody's had such a great run with him as a draft pick, even not getting as many minutes as maybe folks had hoped early on, but just really producing with those minutes. Jonas Valanciunas is a huge, huge, huge winner here. Really excited that I think hoop ball owners have a lot. Presumably they were able to hold on of Jonas Valanciunas.
I actually scooped him in a league where he got dropped by an impatient owner. I am stoked right now.
Great pick.
Julius Randle.
Oh yeah. Hey, yeah. Let's talk Pelicans too. Although Shams, by the way, tweeting that it sounds like Wesley Matthews to the Pacers is basically a done deal right now after his buyout.
Ooh,
so that
ugly.
That's a weird spot. Obviously, he slots into Victor Oladipo's shooting guard spot. It seems like this likely pushes Tyreek Evans back out of the starting lineup. Brew, am I reading that right?
I would think so. I mean, why go there if you're Wes Matthews if you're not guaranteed some minutes? Or it could mean that they don't think that Doug McDermott can hang. But again, you're Wesley Matthews. You've been playing 30 minutes per game for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're a mild contender, but, heck, I mean, in the buyout market, could theoretically he land with the Warriors or another team? I mean, that's you go for your best opportunity if you're Wesley Matthews. So yeah, Tyreek Evans probably gone and maybe even waived and also on the buyout market.
Did they? How many years did they give that dude? That part I don't remember. I feel like it might have been 2.
I think it might have been 2.
Yeah, so that's a tough one. It's a wind down here on trade deadline day, but I do want to talk Pelicans because there was a chance that they might end up with nothing after the trade deadline. There was Nico on the market. There was Randall on the market. There was Peyton on the market. There was Etuan Moore on the market. There was, of course, the Anthony Davis saga, and the only Pelican to get moved was Nico Mirotic. So, Mike, I'll start with you on this one. Presumably the 5 guys that they were all holding out, some of those dudes are going to play again, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm with Brandon on that. Davis does return this season. It's going to be so weird just not, having one of these situations where the guy's perfectly healthy, sitting out when he wants to play. His teammates want him to play. Yes, he had a little run-in with the front office, but Brandon made an excellent point that he does have a year and a half left and not a year. So, worst case scenario, a serious injury does happen to him. They could still get rid of him with a half year left on his contract when he's coming back. But Randall, if Davis is back, he's definitely going to play. He's definitely going to probably see at least 30 minutes a game. So if we're seeing Davis and Randall, it's going to, damper expectations a little bit on Okafor, but he's not a guy I'm dropping anytime soon. I'm waiting to see how this pans out. He has tremendous upside, and we've seen that already.
Brandon, same question on the Pels.
I don't think we know until we see what happens with Anthony Davis. I mean, that's the key. Will Anthony Davis come back? I think the biggest winner, of course, is Randall, because now you have Miro out, and we've seen this season that when it's just 2 of the 3 guys together, that they eat big time. And so I think Randall gets a big time boost, and you just don't know who else will end up doing stuff. I mean, Okafor, I was really skeptical initially. I thought that was going to be his only double-double the first time he came out, and he came out and was fantastic for a couple of weeks. I just don't think we know, and it's so tough now, especially in fantasy leagues, because you don't know who you want to drop, who you want to add, because if you want to hold on to a guy and hope that he does something, then you're missing out on somebody else. I mean, we don't know how many minutes Valanciunas is actually going to get. I mean, do we actually think that Memphis is going to play him a bunch? We don't know. I mean, is Karis LeVert going to come back healthy? There's so many guys that are fringe players, and you're going to end up picking up somebody that's going to help you, but then you could miss out on somebody else by holding on to somebody that ends up doing nothing.
The Enes Kanter buyout is apparently about to happen as well, although we don't have any lead potentially on where he's going to end up. Someone's going to want to take a chance on a guy that I love, Kanter. And we've talked about this. I think that he's incredibly entertaining, but he has tended to rub folks the wrong way a little bit over the entirety of his career. Brew, coming back to you on the Pelicans front, I would have to think that guys like Elfrid Payton and Etuan Moore, they almost definitely have to get back in there and play, right? Because, I mean, you can't just rest your entire starting 5. Anthony Davis is obviously the big question mark, but who do we think you see on the floor, Brew, for New Orleans now that the trade deadline is passed and only Nico Mirotic has been moved?
Well, I think you see a lot of Julius Randle, as discussed earlier. Right. I think Jahlil Okafor fits in as a very, 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 very poor man's Anthony Davis, but he's played well. and all, I kid, but props to him for coming into the season in shape. I think he dealt with a lot of stuff off the floor where he got his mind right, and anybody that does that has my, has my praise. And now for the rest of them, you got to see what Stanley Johnson is doing here. I can't recall, was he going to be waived? Or is he there?
I think he's there for now.
Yeah, I got a little confused there for a second, but he could theoretically fit in there, and Kendrick Williams has been playing really well, so they kind of cancel out each other in my mind. Etuan Moore, whether he was hurt for real or hurt as a trade deadline possible tradee, he's obviously a guy that in the past 30 minutes per game has been able to put up top 130 numbers. in that range, so he's completely serviceable. Drew Holiday is going to get all he can eat unless there's an injury that he doesn't want to play through, or that the Pelicans don't want him to play through. Got a big deal, so you got to protect him there. Elfrid Payton, he just hasn't been able to stay on the floor this year. Is he a part of their future? Is he effective enough to get somebody like Frank Jackson off the floor, somebody that the Pelicans want to do well? So you have Jackson, you have Tim Frazier, you have this sort of mishmash of players that could pop up and be like years past, where you get a Luke Babbitt alert on your phone. It says Luke Babbitt alert, go pick up Luke Babbitt, and then you win your fantasy league.
Remember that? That was like the first podcast we ever did, Brew.
Wasn't it?
That was one of them.
Yeah, he was a hoop ball guy there for a little bit. So that's the Pelicans in a nutshell. I mean, Markieff Morris is probably the guy that you might think's under the radar, that might be interesting. You might consider stashing in a deeper league that's competitive, where you're just looking for somebody that could get minutes on a bad team. Randall, though, is going to probably play like 32 minutes per game. He's going to go off. I think he'll probably be an early round player the rest of the way.
Brandon and Mike, I know we got to bid you guys farewell, so I want to give you a massive thank you. Brandon Marcus and Mike Apotria, you can find them both on Twitter at BDMarcus, at Mike Apotria. They are among our cavalcade, our cavalry, our massive stable of fantastic hosts here at hoop-ball.com. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
The Trade Deadline live show is not done yet, folks. We got a half an hour left, and I want to welcome in his lordship. What's up?
What's going on, fellas? Exciting day. A little disappointed that we didn't get an Anthony Davis trade, but the Rockets got him on Shumpert, so what more can a man ask for?
Much, much more.
Well, let's see. You're a Rockets guy. You guys traded away James Ennis. You got Iman Shumpert. They were involved in something else, weren't they? My mind.
Yeah, it was the Stauskas and Wade Baldwin salary dump.
Yeah. Okay, so not a ton of changes. It seems like with the Rockets, the key for them was just getting Chris Paul back and healthy, and then Clint Capella next, because they were gonna find like a Trevor Ariza floating around, and that's what the whole Rockets narrative has been like. Where can we find our next Trevor Ariza? And the answer is probably not another Trevor Ariza, but I think you'll be okay.
I wish it would have been Trevor Ariza. By the way, just as we're doing this, looks like Enes Kanter just did get released.
All right.
So he's gone.
Well, now we wait to find out the magic of Enes Kanter.
It's going to be depressing no matter where he lands, because he provided so much entertainment on the NBA Takeaway show, because he would just say something ridiculous or do something nuts every single day. So it was like half my show was Enes Kanter, so that's disappointing.
Did you get a chance to talk about he thought he was being called to go into the game? I forget what there was a story that was circulating. Maybe somebody in the chat room can fill it in on this. That Fizdale was calling for someone else on the team, and he thought they had said Ennis. So he went to the scorer's table, got told he wasn't going in, and then gave himself a high five as he went back to the bench or something like that. I mean, it was like literally up until the very last second with the Knicks, he was entertained.
I'm not surprised at all. I hadn't heard that, but I am not even a little bit shocked. That's amazing. So how has the coverage been, Dan? I mean, you've been here for a long time, right, Brew?
Yeah.
How long have you been on today?
Because
I woke up well after you guys started. So
we've been here the whole way through, man. Go ahead, Brew.
I would say I may or may not be wearing an adult diaper. We're having a sit-in.
My kid left and returned from preschool during the time we've been on air. I think I just heard them get back home. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., 4 hours of pandemonium over here. There were these brief lulls where I started to think, oh, man, what am I going to talk about now? And every time that happened, something silly took place. What are your highlights and lowlights from the deadline, Bogman? We haven't been able to talk to you since almost any of this stuff started. By the way, I'm very sorry that I couldn't do a big three this week. I'm dying
no
over
worries,
here.
Man. I know you're swamped here, of course, but I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Markelle Fultz in Orlando. I think that's my my biggest takeaway here today is we know Marc Gasol is going to be good in Toronto. But I want to know, how quickly is he going to be recovered from his stuff. And is it really just getting out of Philly? And we've talked about this on the Big Three constantly, Dan, about how desperately the Magic need a point guard.
Yep.
So when is he going to be able to come in and fill that role? And what is it going to look like when he does? I think that's the thing I'm most excited for.
What about some of the players changing hands? Which was the trade that, you talked about Fultz and we don't know if he's going to play. It will be really interesting. I will, to follow up on that, it'll be super interesting if he suddenly just is playing again in like a week. That would lend a lot of credence to the fact that it was always sort of between the ears and just needed a change of scenery, or do they hold him out? I mean, it seems like the Magic are still fighting for that always enviable 8 seed in the Eastern Conference. What do you think about the Gasol deal? Memphis able to mostly blow it up, but they did hold on to Conley, who signed for another, I think, year or two.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I like that trade for them. I know it was more about getting Gasol, off the books and all that stuff, but I've never been a huge Valanciunas fan. You have Valanciunas on like all your teams this year, don't you?
I do, yeah. I wanted him as like my nice, safe, nice percentages center who doesn't really hurt you in any place, and he was cruising along. He was doing his top 90 thing. In like 19 minutes, and with Memphis, the excruciating pace they play actually probably helps a guy like JV, since they've been accommodating a big lumbering center for years now. I mean, if he gets up to even 23 minutes, he could be a top 75 guy. I know, Brew, you have a lot of JV as well. He was a big hoop ball guy this year. He's got to be among some of the big winners, I would think, today, since he slots into a spot where JaMychal Green, Marc Gasol both just left, and Ivan Rabb is sort of the only other center. Okay, fine, Joakim Noah, but let's be honest about this. So, Brew, you got to be kind of happy about JV too, right?
I am. First, before I talk about this, big shout out to Mike Passador for holding down the fort.
The Panda
today.
The Panda. The most Can I say he's the most underfollowed person on Twitter? Let's make it our life's goal to get the Panda up to a reasonable number of Twitter followers. The world needs to know.
He's like Kaiser Sose, man. He's so deadly. So deadly.
He is
lets he mind going, and the work he just did on the wire, I'm just looking at some of it right now, is absolutely amazing. So shout out to you, Panda, and follow him at Mike_Pandador.
Yeah.
Pandador, DOR. And just bug him. We want him to talk more on social media. Just bug him.
Yeah.
Tell him I sent you.
That's right. Bruce said we're supposed to annoy you considerably. So what?
But Valanciunas, like, the thing about Valanciunas was there was the Clint Capellas and the DeAndre Aytons, and probably missing somebody there, that were your 3rd and 4th round picks that everybody's going after, and you would have to really take a chance on somebody if you didn't take JV at this nice and cheap price of like, what, 6th round, 7th round. And you had that low minute, solid production that, you knew that you were going to get that. But then what if something happened and he was able to somehow get more minutes? And you were really looking at Serge Ibaka with his knee act up, and would that be the thing that got him into 24, 25 minutes per game? Now you're going to get it in Memphis. So that hand injury, this has been a year of hand injuries or thumb injuries where these are just completely random things. You can't attribute, they can't go into a season and be like, that dude's going to get a thumb injury. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So you got hit. My teams, it's funny. I was just cruising in first in so many leagues. And then I got JV got hit, Capella got hit. And, I was slowly like, wait a second.
Dinwiddie.
What's going on here?
You got Dinwiddie.
Out of gas. And now you get him back, and he could easily be a top 40 guy going forward.
I love it. So I'm so excited about the JV.
Also, I got to shout out Zach Feldman. And what up? We got a code for you, Zach. It's hoop ball. Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. He asked about that earlier.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Zach Feldman's one of our great young writers here.
Good stuff. What a cast of characters. Don't worry, I'll give everybody a shout out as we're wrapping this thing up in about 21 minutes or so. So Bogman, I'm coming back to you since we've able to haul in the ITL for this the tail end of this thing. I know you're a man who likes to sleep in a little bit.
Hey, where's the Welsh at?
The Welsh is actually at his work right now, so he could not make it happen. I apologize for him.
Bruce coming for
I'm
you,
mad.
Welsh.
I'm just mad. That's all.
Well, hey, I like that hoodie that you got on.
Hey,
by
you know
the
what?
way.
Thank you. You're the first person that's commented on my great attire. I got the
Come on,
blazer
man.
with the hoop ball hoodie. And you see this on the sidelines in the NBA. All you got to do is get a blazer, and you're good with the dress code.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Dan told me to wear a collared shirt, so I picked up the most wrinkly one I could find. So
yeah, I mean,
said, you know what? This is collared shirt. That's good enough.
Yeah,
So,
I was thinking that I probably should have amended that email with like wear a collared shirt or anything with your company
And
logo
pants.
on. And well, no, actually, pants are optional unless we get like a weird pan down.
0% chance that Dan is wearing pants right now.
It's
Let's
pajama
be
pants.
honest.
It's flannel pants. It's basically what I wear all day, every day. But I did go hoopball t-shirt and blazer today too. So Brew and I are. This is like the SoCal version, the t-shirt and the blazer, and he's the NorCal version of the hoodie and the blazer. I like that you got the In This League logo in the background. I was going to say you could have something with the ITL on that. Tell the listeners where they can find more on ITL action.
Well, I mean, we cover everything over at ITL. We've got football, baseball, basketball, all covered for you. We just put out our 99 fantasy baseball players debate book. So that was a intense labor of love. So if you would go pick that up, that would be amazing. And, at Bogman Sports, at Is It The Welsh on the Twitter machine.
Yep.
So,
and you guys had a baseball trade. I'm not going to spend too much time on a fantasy NBA trade deadline show, but you had a baseball trade at the NBA deadline.
Yeah, JT Realmuto finally got dealt. That was like I saw someone on Twitter describe it as the George R. Martin of trades, where we've been talking about JT Realmuto possibly getting moved for, since the middle of the midway spot through last year. So he finally got moved to Philly, and the Welsh thinks it's a precursor to possibly Bryce Harper signing there. So all kinds of trade stuff going on, impacting every sport today.
Yeah, we had a couple folks in our chat room say the best trade of the day was the Real Muto trade. Yeah, the Game of Thrones reference there, it's almost like much like the show, it sort of got past the book. Nobody actually knew how this thing was going to turn out. As a Dodger fan, I was hoping, but it looks like it's Austin Barnes and Russell Martin. Anyway.
Yep. Looks like I can still like Real Muto. He's not on the Dodgers.
That's right. All your deep. Although, how do you feel about AJ Pollock now?
You know what? You guys can have AJ Pollock. You'll get about 2 seasons worth of that 4-year deal.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Constantly hurt.
So the funny thing about all of this stuff with the trade deadline is that there isn't really a deep breath at any point. Teams play tonight, and it's actually because we're not on the All-Star break anymore. It's by all accounts a mildly busy Thursday. We don't have that like 4 days of sitting around waiting to see guys are going to miss games. There's going to be these weird days off. But it's got to be pretty weird from a mental standpoint, right? For these guys that either just got traded, or if you're the Lakers, like the 15 guys that didn't get traded to go out and play in the Garden tonight. That's the TD Garden, I should say. That's a weird spot to be in, isn't it?
I mean, it doesn't get any weirder than Harrison Barnes getting flipped mid-game and sitting on the sideline until it was over, right?
Yeah, it's been a strange deadline. What are you looking for, Bogman, in like this weird in-between period? Anything in particular?
I don't know that there's anything I'm looking for specifically. I just want it to be. I like the fact that we had the earlier trade deadline this year because it means that we can get these guys acclimated a little bit quicker than normal. And, after the All-Star game, I think everyone should be caught up to speed and kind of know what their role with their new squad is. So not anything in particular, but I'm just looking for, the build to look and the roles to play out.
I like that you brought up the timeline. Actually, that was something that I didn't talk about much on today's show, and it's a lot better. Most of these teams are around 52 to 54 games played, which means that the acquisitions will have closer to 30 games with their new team as opposed to in seasons past. Some of these all-star trades, the guys missed the game if they didn't get moved in time or they had to pack or something like that, you'd get guys that were only playing like 20 games with a new team down the stretch. That was a pretty minimal number. Getting an extra 5 to 10 games with this, whatever it is, it's like 2.5 weeks or something, right, until we get to the break. That's a big deal for folks making moves. I think that's a pretty cool story. And the only question now, Brew, we did talk a little bit earlier about how it's impacted the buyout market, since that now is teams can, if they wanted to, they could just hold on to veterans and not play them for like 3 weeks. The buyout deadline is March, I think, if you're signing with a new team for the playoffs. But it seems like unless there's spite, nobody's really holding on to anybody and then buying them out 3 weeks from now, right?
There's some spite out there. I mean, I guess Enes Kanter's already getting let go, so that's most of the spite in one player.
Yeah, they knew he was going to cause more trouble.
Lopez thing, like Robin Lopez getting bought out and Chicago not having any sort of real replacement there, just fascinating to me. I mean, you're going to play Cristiano Felicio, like. I mean, is he able to run up and down the court?
No, he was actually by our good friend of the show, Gil Alexander over at VSiN. The advanced metrics folks had Cristiano Felicio ranked as the last player in the NBA last year. He was the worst overall player. I know, and I feel a little bit bad, but I don't think he's watching this thing. They basically called him the human tank, because when they put him on the court, all of their lineups went down.
I don't doubt it. He got really large, man. Like he had this moment where you could see outlines of, a potential good player in the NBA, or a good low end rotation player to be accurate. But now, like, you have to play Lauri Markkanen at center a significant amount of time. And is this because they really believe in Chandler Hutchison, or they want to make Hutchison look good? So when he gets healthy, they bring him back, play him at small forward, put Otto Porter at power forward. I mean, I'm just kind of shocked. Timothy Luwawu maybe could handle some minutes. His knee's not been right since he got in the league. But you don't really want Lauri Markkanen, just getting beat up on a night-to-night basis by opposing centers. So maybe they think Wendell Carter's coming back sooner rather than later. But that's just, you look at that big gap and you just wonder how, they're already terrible. How is that going to look when they're even worse?
Maybe they'll go get Gortat, who's supposed to be released too. I don't know.
Well, and yeah, I mean, but again, I guess you would get a veteran that just needs to prove that they can play.
Right.
Who's on the buyout market right now? Maybe that should be our last.
Looks like Ben McLemore just got bought out.
Hey, Ben McLemore's on the buyout market.
It's Dan's favorite player, so I hadn't mentioned him.
We got Wes Matthews. We got Ben McLemore. You got Robin Lopez. You have Enes Kanter. The list, I'm sure, is a lot longer than that, but there's a lot of likely Wayne Ellington, right? He's probably going to be on the buyout market.
Yeah.
Who am I forgetting? Feel free to just shout him out. At this point, we're at the end of the show.
I like the Wayne Ellington one because I think it was Jonas yesterday, who's the other part of the Big Three show with Dan and I. He said, look, the Suns acquired something good, so why don't they immediately get rid of it? So
they wanted Tyler Johnson. And Brew, you said it earlier in this show, they've been searching for a point guard forever, and they got a non-point guard
that can't play. I mean, are we really asking Markelle Fultz to get up and over all of his issues, and whether they're physical or mental? And we got to source Keith Smith here.
You're talking Orlando. We were talking Phoenix.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we're talking Tyler Johnson?
Tyler Johnson, yeah.
Oh, I thought we were talking the Magic for a second. Sorry. Tyler Johnson can come in and do stuff, but he again, like you said, point guard, they need a point guard. They can't, and it's about Devin Booker's long-term development. I completely what spaced and I just started talking Orlando Magic for no reason. They gotta, for Devin Booker's development, just get him off the ball a little bit. Because you got a lot of good things going on with that team. You got, Mikal Bridges. He needs to get his minutes. Kelly Oubre needs to get his minutes. But they also got to get touches. You got to get these guys into a rhythm. And DeAndre Ayton's got to learn how to play with Booker. And so, all the way down the line, getting a good point guard who can organize the offense. I mean, that should have been job one there. So who knows?
Yeah. The Suns are a weird case, 100%. So, yeah, but Wayne Ellington, I mean, there's going to be plenty of teams trying to snap up Ellington, right, Dan?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it sounds like the Pistons have already put their hat into the ring. The Lakers, I have to imagine, they've cleared out a roster spot in that deal with the Clippers. I know we heard about Melo, so I'll put him on my list of guys that have been bought out. Who am I missing? Is there anybody I'm missing on the buyout market?
I mean, Kaminsky hit it pretty hard today on the buyout market, but
all right,
I mean,
fair enough. All right, well, we'll go into wrap-up mode at that point. We got about 9 minutes left on the show before we put a pin in this thing. Brew, I'll start with you on this bad boy. We had about 15, 16 trades, I think, over the last 3 or 4 days. It sounds like, now that I think we can safely call things kind of settled, pickups. That's what everybody wants to know at this point. And the chat room continues to go crazy with so-and-so versus so-and-so and ones that I didn't get to. Delon Wright was a guy that we were very high on. Mike Conley didn't get moved, so that scaled it back a little bit. What is what are the rest of the season for you, Brew, on Wright now that Conley is staying? Because you said he could potentially go as high as like a top 50, top 60 guy if he was basically the only guard left. With Conley around, where does that put his expected outcome and even his ceiling? I
think I'm going to put his expected outcome at top 120. There's still a lot of uncertainty with that. And I want to give owners room for growth here. I think in the 20 to 24 minutes per game that he can get with Conley playing a full boat, Holiday playing, 28 to 30 minutes, Kyle Anderson playing 28 to 30 minutes. I think Bruno Caboclo gets scaled way back. You got to see what they're going to do with Avery Bradley. Not quite sure what they want to do there. So if they play him 24 to 26 minutes, now you're starting to get a little bit crowded there. JV probably plays something like 24 to 26, maybe 28 minutes if things are going really well. Jaren Jackson swaps between the two positions and, probably starts at power forward and, gets his 30 plus minutes per game. So, you got a lot of minutes. The JaMychal Green exit helps, push Kyle Anderson up into probably some power forward minutes against small teams. So they've got a glut of wings, and at the same time, Delon Wright is good enough to earn those 20 to 24 minutes and get into that top 125 range.
Could he get up closer to 30 in any situation? Avery Bradley's in town too.
I think, I don't know that Avery Bradley's going to factor too much into it. He's lost a lot off of his fastball. He's dealt with some off the court stuff. He's been just not the same guy. And at the same time, that could be the reason why he pushes hard to, get back, to a previous level. He hasn't been good in Los Angeles, and he's gotten plenty of opportunity to be good. So what I think with Delon Wright, though, with 125 value, I still think he's the type of player. I kind of feel like he's a must-add player, but I realize a lot of players play in shallower leagues, 10 to 12 team leagues, where they probably have some pretty good options that they might be discarding. So you might not just consider him a stop and go grab him ad, but with the possibility like Mike Conley could easily get shut down for any number of reasons. He's still got a pretty good amount of his contract left. There's no reason to play him heavy minutes when you're trying to lose. So there's a couple different ways that Wright could get up into the 24, 26, 28 minute range, in which case I think he's probably about a top 90, top 80, maybe even give him top 75 upside. But, it's getting harder to predict that unless we know that Mike Conley is, on his way out for whatever reason.
You had mentioned...
No, that's good, though. I'd probably take Zubac if I need a rock-solid player over him.
Okay, so that one flipped back a little bit on you.
It flipped back, but you guys know me. I want the upside, so I'm going to take Wright over Zubac unless I absolutely need a big man.
Brew, I didn't get to hear your thoughts on Harrison Barnes going to the Kings. So I'm sure you've talked about it a little bit already, but can I hear it?
Yeah, from a fantasy basketball perspective, he's got a pretty good usage rate. I think that he has fans in the front office. I think that they're going to let him more or less kind of be what he's going to be. But the real thing he needs to be for this team is like a third, fourth, or fifth option, because De'Aaron Fox brings something to this team that's really unique in the league. And if they're running, they just are walking into wide open 3-point shots. They're getting so much good stuff off of the pace. But now, you got Marvin Bagley, who's got an enhanced role. You've got Barnes in here, who has played in faster paced offenses, but as a dribbling ISO player, he's not really, designed for a high pace. I almost wonder if the Kings dial back their pace because of these two players, which would take the identity of the team away from a De'Aaron Fox-centric team and move it more towards a balanced team. There's some pros and cons to that, but at any rate, he's going to take a little bit from Fox. Hield is this guy that you just don't want not shooting. And the Kings haven't figured that out yet, is you can't go in a game without Buddy Hield shooting as many shots as he can get, because he's just going to make them all. It's
I
really,
like that. Yeah.
It's fascinating to watch this player really improve over the years. And, as far as, Marvin Bagley, he's trying to be a number one player in this league. You can just see it all over the way that he plays. He's taking too many shots, bad shots. And you can make an argument that that's okay because you like the aggression. You just need to reel it in a tiny bit. But there's going to be a clawback to each of their values because of the arrival of Barnes. And then as far as, the reality side of it goes, they didn't give a lot to get him. I think the most compelling argument against this deal that I've seen out there is, one, everybody's overrating Harrison Barnes, which is totally true.
Yeah.
Two is, what could you have done other than that? This is like a middle of the road move, but I do think it makes them, a playoff team. And I also think that it makes them a little bit dangerous if they could somehow add another piece that they didn't add.
And it's still the Kings buying. When was the last time the Kings were buying at the deadline, bro?
Not when I was covering them.
Right. Yeah. It's exciting.
Well, there's an avenue here too, because with the Clippers, I know they picked up some guys at the trade deadline, but trading away Tobias Harris probably takes them from the 8 seed, one would assume, out. Even if you can try to claim that they're still making a push at it. I believe they keep their pick if they miss the playoffs this year. So they're actually incentivized to not be the 8 seed. And so the Kings see that and they're like, oh, well, that's the only team standing between us and a playoff spot. Obviously LeBron back, the Lakers are going to be in trouble, but the Mavericks, they're going into the tank. Timberwolves just kind of stink. And the Pelicans, they've gone into a tank. Grizzlies, they fell apart a month and a half ago. Suddenly, the West, which was like 14 deep 6 weeks ago, is now more like 9 deep, 9.5 if you want to put the Clippers still in there, because they'll still find a way to win some ball games. But things got it's whittled down a little bit. And out east, I think you can make the argument that maybe 10 teams are still fighting for a playoff spot. You could maybe the Magic, you put it at 11. So we're starting to get a little bit more clarity here. Bogman, we're in our last 2 minutes of show, because then I'm going to go pass out somewhere for 20 minutes.
Probably take a leak, right? I mean,
no. Oddly enough, I'm actually doing okay on that front.
Look at you.
I'm a man who's slight of frame, but I have the bladder power of a racing horse. I don't know.
It's you and Andrew Siciliano who does the football red zone. I always wonder when that guy, if he ever goes to the bathroom.
Oh, by the way, trick of the trade. I might or might not have an amateurly inserted catheter under the table right now.
Well, let's talk about anything else.
No, yeah, I'm not taking it back right now. We're at the end of the show. People are like, Dan just mentioned a catheter.
I'm not listening anyway.
Bogman, I want to give you a massive thank you for hopping on here in our tail end of the program.
Guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
At Bogman Sports on Twitter if you want to give him a follow, and you should. And I'd like to take the last minute of the show to just thank everybody that came on today's 4-hour trade deadline special. I've got to pull up the list of guests so I make sure I don't miss anybody from this thing. But we started it with an hour of our good buddy Neil Rochlani, which is, of course, you should check out the Box Score Breakdown. Fantastic show he does with Adrian Benjamins every night when the games are complete. And you guys can probably hear the voices starting to fail on me a little bit. So this is officially the end of the program. Neil is at Ball with Neil on Twitter. Coach at Joe Sarvati. Hank Aaron is at Hank_Aaron2. JC is at JC DeLeon. Corbin is at Corbin Ford NBA. Vince Miracle at VM Center. Brandon is at BD Marcus. Mike Apotria is at Mike Apotria on Twitter. And of course, I am at Dan Bespris. And the big dog is at Aaron Bruski on Twitter as well. The site is hoop-ball.com. Hope you guys enjoyed the coverage. We really enjoyed having so many of you checking it out for 4 hours with us. Many of you are still hanging on here even while I'm thanking everybody. And a big thank you to Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee for making all of this possible as well. Folks, have a wonderful Thursday. We'll be back on Twitter with information all the time. You've got a nightly show. You've got podcasts. Check out Fantasy NBA Today as well. And with that, I take a deep breath, a final sip from my cup of water, and bid you all adieu. So long.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.